Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Grolier Poetry Bookshop. Tonight we have a phenomenal reading planned for you. The poets Elise Paschen and Sophie Cabot Black, who are introduced by the great local poet and longtime friend of the Grolier, Askold Melnicek, who also founded Aerosmith Books, Agni. He has a book of poems coming out later this year. Is that true?
True.
With Mad Hat Press, which is going to be fantastic. We'll host you later for that.
Thank you.
But this evening, we're celebrating these two wonderful poets who have a history with the Grolier themselves. Elise's book, her first book, she read in the 1990s with Frank Bedard, here for Louisa Solano. And for Sophie, she read here in the 80s when she won the Grolier Prize under Louisa Solano. So we welcome you both back. And we welcome all of you. So thank you so much for being here. Hello, people on Zoom. And without further ado, Askold Melnicek.
Good evening. Thank you so much, James. And thank you to the Menkidi family for keeping the doors of this temple to poetry open and ready to serve another generation. Can you hear me back there? Yeah, great.
Something happened with the mic.
Yeah, did it just go off?
Oh, now it's good.
Okay, no, I
can
have
raise
to,
it
I
a
have to, no, I have to just love to kiss the mic. I got it. Thank you, sir. Perfect. Beautiful. So as a boy, I was made to recite hundreds, maybe thousands of lines of poetry. Declamation was a standard part of my mother's old world pedagogy. What I understood only later was that declamation was in fact a form of reclamation. Each poem represented a poet's efforts to reclaim something not only of their own past, but that of the community, in the process transforming history into myth. Tonight we'll hear two poets declaiming their work as they reclaim something of their personal stories, which also happen to belong to the collective histories of these United States. Our first reader I'll be introducing both of the readers now, so you don't have to bear the burden of my interrupting the flow of the poetry. The first reader will be Sophie Cabot Black. In her poem Salvage, Sophie Cabot Black writes, quote, "To leave behind an outline, which then becomes form. Held up, it is called beauty for the ability to contain what we did not know we wanted to know. It's a brilliantly compressed ars poetica, subtle and lapidary, underscoring the writer's impulse, her all too human longing to leave a trace, while also identifying a key part of the artistic process, the movement from the inchoate to the articulate, from chaos to form. By stressing art as discovery, Black reminds me of something Howard Nemerov once wrote. I write a poem not to say what I think, not even to find out what I think, but to find out what the poem thinks." Among other matters, Cabot Black's poems in this book are thinking about legacy, stewardship, and the predictable unpredictability of the future. In a poem titled Democracy Until, she writes, "To inherit what we did not make and now must pay for, finished with doing what we need to get what we want, knowing it only begins later after we tell the story." The poet end quote, the poet acknowledges that history, unlike poetry, is never end-stopped, but is a process. And quote, "And whoever checks the axle and the bolt only tightens what will loosen again," she warns. The poems are also thinking in their singular way about economics. Quote, "Those who take on risk are not those who bear it. The sign said to profit as they do, trade around the one particular. Let them credit what you hunt. Let the future perform." And the poems are also thinking about old friends, many of whom will be familiar to the Grolier. Lucy Brock-Roydo, Franz Wright, Linda Gregg, others. Let's be clear, the pastoral world in which many of these poems are set is no bucolic paradise. The book's title, Geometry of the Restless Herd, alludes to the work of the 20th century British evolutionary biologist, W.D. Hamilton, who proposed what's known as the selfish herd theory. To put it simply, he describes a world in which the weaker members of a species inhabit the periphery of a society, where they're more vulnerable to predators, while the powerful sheep cluster toward the herd center, in, let's say, gated communities, for instance. But Black's herd is restless and will not be penned. Tantalizingly oblique, elegant and taut, at times parable-like, quote, if you name it, you will lose it. If you have it, you don't want it, end quote. Her work invites readers to find in them the poems they need and which this moment requires. Sophie Cabot Black has published 3 previous collections. Her work has appeared in the New Yorker, Mercurius, Agni, the American Poetry Review, Granta, as well as in numerous anthologies. And her books have been honored by the Norma Farber Book Award, the Connecticut Book Award, and the Grolier Prize, among others. She's taught at the New School, Rutgers, Columbia, and the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center. But tonight, she is here with us. Pause for a moment here. Our second reader will be Elise Paschen. Where Black eschews proper nouns and particulars, Paschen pursues a radically different trajectory. Her 6th book, Blood Wolf Moon, drives boldly into her Osage heritage. Quote, beneath a plot of leaves lie the bones of ancestors, buried in earthen mounds, end quote. And so begins her exploration of the history of a period known as the Reign of Terror, recently retold to such good effect by Martin Scorsese in Killers of the Flower Moon, the title of which was inspired by one of Paschen's poems. It's a perennial American story with greed again in the starring role. When members of the Osage tribe in the 1920s Oklahoma discover oil on their land, they begin to be killed off. We all know by whom. And as Paschen writes, quote, all for the sake of a dime. It's a story which at this moment in our nation's and indeed the world's history could not be more important or more timely. Reading these poems against the backdrop of 2 ongoing genocides in Gaza and Ukraine, the reader is repeatedly struck by how little we learn from history. Paschen tracks the national callousness to the present moment in piercing lines that dart and fly like arrows across the page. Quote, for the sake of a dime, oblivious owners invented names for teams, Braves, Chiefs, Redskins, end quote. But the story grows complicated and personal when the speaker notes, quote, football zealots, my parents rooted for the Bears. Quote, reading my friend's manuscript, writes Paschen, I'm stunned to discover the origin of red skins, the bodies of natives brought in for bounty, end quote. What emerges is a complex story of inheritance and identity. Quote, because of Indian boarding school, my cousin says our grandfather only spoke English, though his mother communicated in Osage. Here, Paschen's project of reclamation has the poet incorporating words and script in Osage. Paschen's mother, the prima ballerina Maria Tallchief, widely regarded as the preeminent American ballerina of the 20th century, born to a Scots-Irish mother and an Osage father, was proud of her Osage identity. She was also on the road a lot. The romance of celebrity soon reveals its twin, the darker side of family life in a storied clan. Quote, across a lake, my mother floated, a swan, spellbound by day, transformed back to human at night, end quote. Watching a documentary about her mother, the poet writes, quote, encompassed by swan feathers, her face lights up the screen, remembering Maria Tallchief, a mother I can't remember before her dementia, end quote. We witness the transmission of history across generations, quote. My daughter and I now enter the circle, pick up our pace as we imitate the gait of mares trotting, those songs chanted by generations of warriors who gallop back into the heart of the village. Restless and unwilling to be penned, Paschen notes, quote, I zigzag into the world, a woman, a wolf, within my heart an untamed horse. What do you call it? The wind. Mounting the wind horse, the poems soar. Elise Paschen studied at Harvard and received her PhD from Oxford in English and American literature. She served as executive director of the Poetry Society of America for 13 years, has edited several anthologies, published work in poetry, The New Yorker, The Harvard Advocate, The Hudson Review, as well as in many anthologies. She currently teaches in the MFA program at the School of Art Institute in Chicago, where she lives with her husband and still 2 children. Grown up. Sophie Cabot Black. You can lower this mic a little.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that okay?
I don't know.
A little closer.
Does that look great?
It looks good, but you need to speak a little
Okay.
closer.
Okay, thank you so much, Oscar, and thank you, James, for having us. And thank you, Grolier, and thank you, Louisa. But really, those were wonderful introductions, and I think there's some interesting connections between both Elise and I. Really grateful for you all being here. I want to frame up my book for a hot second, but then go right into politics. So I want to say that this new book, is about a farm that I grew up on, that I'm still on, and I've been there for 6 decades.
I don't really hear you. Can I write
Better?
this to you?
You just need to hold your mouth close to it.
Okay.
Like,
For 6 decades, and Elise is gonna help me.
That's you.
Sorry about that.
I can do this. Let me know if you can.
there we go. That's a burden there.
Thank you for your patience. So yeah, this book is actually, it wants to ride 2 rails. It wants to ride the rail of me having left, not left the farm, but left farming life. I got rid of most of our animals on this farm in Connecticut because I can't find a farmer anymore, and it just doesn't seem appropriate to be farming in the middle of such degradation of the land. So I'm rethinking that. And that's what this book is trying to encompass a little bit of. But I also wanted to ride the rail of where we are politically. So I'm going to try and frame this as a place where we are right now, in the moment of where we are, starting with a poem that just came out last week on the Academy of American Poets website. It's not in the book. So I invite you to try and understand this poem as both where we are on our farm, but something else going on at the same time. Ice. A small animal went out to the middle and disappeared. No sign of anything further. At the border, where trees no longer take root, the brave track, steadfast, written only so far. We grow quiet enough to hear the moan of ice, the rumble of deep water going beyond its beyond, and we cannot break open without loss. And ice, with nothing more to remember, shifting under its own weight as if it could stay forever. Do not let the word for this stand for something else. It is this. Chorus and anti-chorus. January 21st, 2017, Washington, D.C. All tragedies contain us with no beginning to speak of. Each time we talk ourselves back into gathering another step toward the finally said, which does not work for all. To say to one another what we believe becomes the action, to explain the story while also being the story. We are enough, not as one, but as one of many. We have imagined the places we will not be moved, have given many names to what we can make. And the river sings as it flows past both sides of the city, as it splits the one into two. And he who was to be the hero is not the hero. And we who are given so much to sing must move as if this is not interlude or merely disruption, as we sing by the engine that will not cease, and the bird above the siren in its unexamined freedom lifts even higher as there is no place left to land. As to why we will not stop making the hats. This time it did not begin with the beaver. Instead, a little farther up the mountain where the sheep we keep each year come through winter enough to answer us, enough for us to shear, deft before the coming storm, to take away from the body what it did not know it grew, and then astonished each spring to feel the quickening of the lamb, the heft of sudden weight crossing one more patch of snow. All with an eye out for the cougar or some such animal of which the DNA is no longer what it might have been. The coyote now as part dog, part wolf, already commonplace. We have come to know the truth as no longer true. The old ways do not work against the new. How to reconcile the bear as she wakes to what we now call ours, and how to prepare for the unforeseen as we throw each sheep handily on their back, to begin at the belly, fleece to shear, to wash and pick, to card, to bale, to weigh, to the depot where all will be spun, dyed into the wool we want, knowing it can be done again and again without much death. For the sheep, she rises, shakes herself back into where she was before, grass, lamb, watches until we have pulled away as we head back down the mountain. And in something like ability or capacity, the condition of being human or female or both, we want to knit this out into dawnlight, into a long stream of making sense, into where we will go next, into skeins of design and colors of what blood can mean, pinks such as rose or carmine, wanton or nearly red, timid or raw, healing or newly born, scarlet, blaze, bloom or shell or blush, like the small fingers of a wakening child, each stitch to repeat, purl, and dispatch, to get this done and into that which we can call sustainable, so those from behind can choose from the many hues, likewise to walk forward with covered or uncovered heads. Lame. Winter. To save anything I might lose, I stack the bales beyond the height of how to bring them down without breaking, and lock the hatch again before the feed unseals. The crippled lamb got in last night, his stumped forelegs on worn cement, a sound only a rat would hear, waiting for contents to spill. And he, who was born, perhaps should not have lived, but cannot help move the breadth of the almost. What am I to refuse? He cannot be more clear, going as far as possible, and still not beyond the closest pale by morning. I cannot be everywhere. I want to be everywhere. How we speak when we cannot speak. Having put the house in order, I went up as far as possible, the stair that cannot deny its noise, in the quiet of all fed and watered, while you followed past the sleeping, the dresser, the chair. My two wrists taken up by your one absolute hand, as we lay ourselves down, each corner of the bed another reason to wheel round, the curtain, the sheets, the breadth, moves like a lost dog between us. Two wolves who watch each other as if back from disaster and have come to know how it might be with the other, each on opposite ridges, panting, if you will, I will. Runt. I am the one the meadow did not keep, neither early nor late, nor bitter storm nor season, and already vanishing. For 3 days at her side I stayed, I fit my heart to hers. Amid those who grow to market, I was not to be long. Buried as deep as what the next day may bring, made certain with a pile of any nearby stone. My one mother, ready to let go the smallest, and the smallest goes. Perhaps I was a reckoning for luck. First, I could not stay away, and then I was finished. I looked back only once. Tail pointed nowhere. Morning fog not yet lifted as I turn. Already gone. Leaving the field. I watched you kneel to measure what was against, what was not. The horse and the cow rattle the gate as you turn to the road through. Abundance, no longer anything but another day done. Burn the old grasses, plow in the remainder. The dusk folds to an emptied bucket. Each row sown was how you would never raise enough to stop or get out before you began to hate what might fail. You will never be what the field remembers. The latch holds, alone in the grief of being outside what you have made, and the possible that lies in whatever green you leave behind. Our house. As the leaves turn their backs on us and the lilac gives over to dusk, nothing is ever certain, not even the house, stubborn in twilight as it outlasts the grove it was wrestled from. Those left behind, the oak and ancient elm, lean against each other as if in consent. Out of dirt, out of some small mistake, comes the seedling. It too has learned to watch. As we walk in and out of what wilderness was and will again become, as we enter our home, the way we enter love, returning from elsewhere to call out each other's names and pulling the door closed behind us. Thank you very much.
My skills means.
Hello, testing. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, James, for hosting this event. Thank you, Oscar, so much for that gorgeous introduction. I'm so happy to share the podium with my very dear friend, Sophie. Thank you, Sophie, for that beautiful reading.
Thank you, Elise.
And I just have to say that I was an undergraduate here. So I used to spend a lot of time visiting Louisa and Pumpkin at the Grolier. So happy to be back here. Thank you again, James. I'd like to begin by reading a poem called After Killers of the Flower Moon. As Osgold mentioned, a line from my poem Wigia was used as the title for David Graham's book and Martin Scorsese's movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. The line in the poem reads, during Zaga Ziga Setha, the killer of the flowers moon. After attending the Osage Nation premiere of Killers of the Flower Moon, I had the chance to spend time with Lily Gladstone. Lily portrays Molly Burkhart, whose family was murdered during the Reign of Terror, 1921 through 1926, a tragic period of American history when outsiders killed the Osage for their oil head rights. My own Tallchief family lived in Fairfax, Oklahoma during this time. After Killers of the Flower Moon. Lily Gladstone confides, after Killers of the Flower Moon. Lily Gladstone confides she wore my great-grandmother Eliza's blankets in 3 scenes. I don't remember my great-grandmother, though in a photo aged 90, she holds me in her arms. The actress plays Molly Burkhart, who lived down the street from Eliza in Fairfax. Hands out wide, Lily says Eliza had a broad wingspan. She pleated the wool broadcloth several times. Through an open window, wings outstretched, an eagle owl looms toward Molly's mother, dying from poison. My mother told me that owls in trees wailed the windswept night before her father died. Wrapping my great-grandmother's striped blanket around her shoulders, Molly asks her husband during a downpour not to close the window. Be still, she says, and listen to the rain. Eliza's blankets fold and unfold stories. Into every pattern I fly back home. The Osage replaced hide robes with Dutch traded blankets in the mid-19th century. I stopped breathing during the night of film when a murderer calls Osage women blankets. While her husband injects Molly with arsenic, each sister is shot, poisoned, or bombed to death. A woman in a voiceover foreshadows, this blanket is a target on our backs. In the quiet, after Molly's obituary is reported, I only hear rain. Outside the theater, silent thunderbirds overhead spread dark, cloud-spattered wings, outlining circles across a broadcloth. Inside each target, a hole in the sky. So Blood Wolf Moon, my new book, came out a couple of weeks ago, opens with a long poem called Heritage, which consists of a bracelet of crown poems where the last line of the first poem becomes the first line of the next. So I'm going to read several poems from Heritage, and I'm going to begin with Heritage 1 and 2, both of which were initially published in the Harvard Review. So thank you, Harvard Review. Thank you, Major Jackson. Heritage 1. Once I had a name for everything I possessed, but now am silent, afraid to trespass. When I leave the conversation or seem preoccupied, I travel that island where lupins in summer devour the rocky terrain. Those flowers named after the slate blue wolves who keen in Night's Hollow, who scavenge the tundra across the hectares and hectares, the way they test the air, how their topaz eyes never lose sight of their quarry, how they track any escape with a slow nod, a careful paw to the earth. Those wolves never roved that island. I only pretend they did. Stories of those who came before, the ones who followed the cloudy gray, the loafer wolves or buffalo runners across the plains, chanted their songs, hunting, haunted, found their shapes, carved silhouettes in the sky, those whose land extended past states, the extinct, extinguished, our next of kin. 2. Extinguished, our next of kin, descended from constellations, the little ones desiring a form out of air into muscle, sinew, limbs, landing in red oak trees, and with the heft of their new bodies scattered capped oak nuts across the earth. Underneath branches, each acorn, a child to be born. How eagle navigated the downward flight, wings spackled, catching spirals of wind. Waters blown across land masses, sculpted by great elk, the earth maker, as hooves sunk, torso and antlers heaved into ocean. The water people, the name givers, gave appellations to the sky people, the land people. I have always been earthbound and obstinate, drawn to these rising and falling hills, the tall grass prairies, the deer-running moon hovering over the ridge. How I mapped the rental car onto back roads, the trails my relatives crisscrossed on their seasonal hunts, until I was lost. My Osage name descends from the Buffalo clan. I seek out bodies of water, the way those who came before settled along the deep tributaries, the veins on the backs of our hands, hands I recognize in those oval family portraits, long, lean, poised. I was born in the month of the blood wolf moon. 3. I was born in the month of the blood wolf moon. My mother said icicles shook the trees as she and my father traipsed along the black sheet sidewalk to their convertible. Her timed contractions stretched out hours long until almost midnight. Hospital bedside, my aunt and uncle smiled over the crib, or was that just a photograph? Tell me about departure. Tell me how often she left the newborn, jetted away on Pan Am, tied up the ribbons of her satin toe shoes. I am not one to antagonize her. I bow low to her voice. She who crossed the Iron Curtain, searching for the baby photos inside stamped envelopes, memories sleight of hand. I don't remember how she vanished or when, tiptoeing into the cape of night, wrapped in ermine, in mink, flabbergasting audiences with every pirouette. Frozen, perfect, the star blazing on stage. I'm going to skip ahead to number 9. And we heard Osgold read part of that one. Heritage 9. For the sake of a dime, oblivious owners invented names for teams: Braves, Chiefs, Redskins. Football zealots, my parents rooted for the Bears. Last night, someone holding a glass of Sancerre at a posh French restaurant said, "Why should they care about the name Redskins? Why make such a fuss?" My blonde hair fooled her. Our host whispered, her family is Osage. After we pushed back chairs during goodbyes, she apologized. When my mother, Maria Tallchief, danced the Muse Terpsichore in Apollo on the stage of the Paris Opera House, the audience embraced her, shouting, "Encore, encore!" The headlines of 47 read, "Peau rouge danse à l'opéra." Peau rouge, red skin, a phrase she learned to ignore. Reading my friend's manuscript, I'm stunned to discover the origin of Redskins, the bodies of natives brought in for bounty. During my youth, every Sunday in the fall, my parents bicycled along Lake Michigan to cheer their home team playing in Soldier Field, a stadium named as a memorial to those who died in combat, constructed the year my mother was born. The last poem from this sequence, Heritage 10. It goes until 14 though. And it circles back around like a chronosonnet. 10. The year my mother was born in Fairfax, Oklahoma, white men were marrying Osage women and killing them for their head rights. My mother was born a year after the Indian Citizenship Act was passed. Indians tied to the US for or against their wills. 3 years before her birth, her half-sister, baby Ruth's grave was dynamited with nitroglycerin by outlaws scavenging for diamonds and gold buried inside the casket. In the Tallchief plot, I wander through family history, the marble monuments, angelic statues, measuring each step on grass, memorizing photographs. This one of a striking beauty, my great-grandmother, Eliza Bigheart Tallchief, surviving her husband by 50 years, the widow, the adored grandmother of my mother, Eliza. Only now do I see my name, a permutation of hers. At home in Chicago, every day I pass family photographs framed on walls. My great-grandfather's oval sepia portrait of his boyish face replicated on the headstone. Instead of the young bride, here is Eliza, a tribal elder wrapped in a multicolored blanket, standing outside her front porch, a photo taken after all those years she outlived him. So the book is modeled after the 5 acts of a play. And those were from part 1. After Killers of the Flower Moon is the central section of the book. So it takes a deep dive into the Reign of Terror with 3 poems. And then now I'm going to skip to the very end of the book, part 5. So throughout the years, the Osage Dictionary has inspired my work. So we have Francis LaFlèche's Osage Dictionary, we have Carolyn Quintero's Osage Dictionary, and now we have our own Osage online dictionary based on orthography, which is a system, a language system, which the Osage invented in these last 20 years. So it's a very new language system. I've been taking Osage language classes for about 1.5 years. I'm still learning it, but I have employed the Osage language in my poems. And so the epigraph from this next poem is actually from Carolyn Quintero's Osage Dictionary. And it reads, "Who is going to undress that one with the red coat? Sumac in Pahuska. Against blackjacks, the wedding coat red of sumac flares bright, soon to be stripped bare. The tires drum a trot rhythm through the tall grass prairie, a horse raiding song, centuries old. Dried up stalks, ghosts of sunflowers bow down in fields. During the drum ceremony, a wife will bestow her wedding coat, once a soldier's. What can I release from this mortal heart? A red-tailed hawk alights in a cedar. Come wildfire season, those trees will explode." So I'll conclude with 2 poems at the end of the book. And I see them as translations, dictionary poems. They're written in 3 columns. So the first one is in Osage orthography, the second, Osage phonetic spelling from Carolyn Quintero's dictionary, and the third in English. And I will read just the English version. Next time I'm here, I'll read in both. Stationary. Sign with a thumbprint, deep in this earth. The throat, like a waterfall, rumbles. A sycamore's shadow swallows the swan. We thunder while our teeth talk. Take off a garment. At sundown, leaf-like layers stipple the flooding water. Typewriter. I zigzag into the world, a woman, a wolf, within my heart, an untamed horse. What do you call it? The wind. Which pathway to that star or the orbit of a star? Vapor rises off standing water. Upstairs, tell untruths, that of a tongue. Time is just the ticking noise against metal. Thank you so much.